When it comes to the constant battle of getting and staying in shape, two of the scariest words in the dictionary are diet and nutrition, at least for me. And my guest today is Jonathan Montgomery, the owner of First in Nutrition, a former firefighter who is here to help us dispel some of the myths, eliminate some of the rumors, and give us a clear path forward on the mindset it takes to get our diet under control. Stay with us.
You are a warrior.
321 status.
What kind of vehicle is it?
You are the very best your nation has to offer.
911.
Multiple shots fired.
They're asking you to lead.
5. We need a Bearcat.
It's up to us.
So 133. I need somebody that's got a visual on where the shooter is.
You must be sound in mind, body, and spirit.
42, where's the officer down? I have a rescue helicopter that wants to land and help.
This is the podcast that will make you the one.
Copy, running eastbound.
The one that will bring everyone back.
Trouble, we have shots fired. Give me backup now.
Because no one else is coming.
We're going to have an officer shot. 100 block of East Street.
Suspect is down.
This is the Squad Room.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Squad Room, where we learn the tactics, the strategies, and the mindset for having a successful life in our challenging career. My name is Garrett Tesla, and I'm on a mission to build a world where first responders wake up inspired, feel confident at work, and go home knowing they've spent their time in a worthy cause. We have a great episode today, but before I get to our guest, I want to remind you that you can support the show and rock some cool gear by visiting our apparel line at aworthycauselife.com. You can check them out there or on Instagram at aworthycauselife or on Facebook. There are also a couple other ways you can connect to the show real quick and make sure that you are getting as much value out of these episodes as possible. First off, follow our Facebook page and join our Facebook group of active and aspiring law enforcement professionals. Just search the Squad Room group on Facebook to join. Also follow me on Instagram at the Squad Room. And our mailing list. Go to thesquadroom.net and join our mailing list. A lot of new content is going to be distributed through that mailing list, so you don't want to miss out. Also, several companies who support the podcast. Make sure you support them as well. Go to thesquadroom.net/support, and you'll get exclusive deals from Signature Coins, Hard to Kill Fitness, On It, Ranger Up, Hardhead Veterans, and Audible. All right. My guest for this episode is Jonathan Montgomery. Jonathan used to be a fat firefighter. Now, you don't see those around very often, but they do exist. Much like, unfortunately, the fat cop, of which I tend to be one of them. Now, before Jonathan was a firefighter, he was actually a roadie for some of the biggest punk bands of the 90s. And several years ago, Jonathan got his act together after becoming a firefighter, and he lost a ton of weight. And he's now a ripped former firefighter who owns First in Nutrition along with his wife, Ann, who's also a former firefighter and a complete badass of and to herself. Jonathan loved working as a firefighter, but he saw his bigger calling was helping other first responders navigate weight loss and the often tricky relationship we would develop with food, a relationship that I have found to be very complicated when it comes to me specifically or individually. He used to get stopped around the firehouse when he was losing a ton of his weight, and he was bombarded with questions by his teammates and his squad mates asking him about how he did it. And eventually started taking on some clients, then a few more clients, and eventually it became a full-time job to the point where he had to leave the fire service, and he started First in Nutrition along with Ann. In fact, he's currently my nutrition coach and helping me work through some of the things that I need to do as I yet again try to lose weight. In this episode, Jonathan and I reminisce about our shared days in the music industry. We worked with some of the same bands and were on some of the same tours, which is kind of funny how closely our lives aligned at times. And there's a very real chance we met at some point in the past, and of course just didn't know it. Now we're talking almost 30 years ago. That's scary to say that. Anyway, we talk about the challenges of eating healthy as a first responder and how stress affects our diet and the simple things we can do to take more control of the calories that we consume and the lives that we lead. Make sure to follow him at First in Nutrition on Instagram and learn more at firstinnutrition.com. The current pandemic that we're in has obviously changed the game in how we manage our fitness and our health. With gyms across the country shutting their doors and good fresh produce in short supply, We really have to take ownership of our routines when it comes to our fitness. A lot of you have been left scrambling to replace your gym routine with something you can do at home. Others of you might already have a home gym, but are looking for something more structured that you can use to set yourself up for success. Well, this episode is sponsored by Hard to Kill Fitness, and I think they have a solution to the problem of staring at a whiteboard wondering what to do. Hard to Kill is run by a team of military veterans and active duty police officers. You might have heard Matt, the operational athlete, on one of our most recent episodes talking about his work with Hard to Kill. Hard to Kill Fitness offers some simple yet highly effective and proven functional training workouts that you can do at home or the gym. Their routines focus on basic equipment and fundamental movements, so you don't have to learn how to do Olympic lifts or complex movements. Hard to Kill Fitness develops workouts specifically for the demands of the military and first responder communities, and their goal is to help you be prepared mentally and physically for the challenges we all face on the street. Each workout comes as a PDF and includes detailed descriptions of the movements in each workout, tips on mindset, and a progressive path that build on the previous work you've already put in. You also get access to the private Facebook group, and you can interact with the coaches there by email or by Instagram. Right now, Hard to Kill Fitness is offering 30% off their bodyweight plans, which require minimal equipment, just a willingness to get after it. Check them out at hardtokillfitness.co or on Instagram at hardtokill_fitness. Jonathan Montgomery of First in Nutrition, thanks for joining me on the Squad Room, buddy.
Man, thanks for having me, Garrett. I'm really excited to be here.
You are here to talk about my least favorite topic. Aren't you excited about that? How's that for a pitch?
Don't tell me that.
No, I'm here for you. You're here to convince me why I'm wrong. That it is my least favorite topic, and it's something that I haven't covered on the show in a long time, and that I'm totally remiss for addressing recently, but recently with my own self. But we haven't had this topic on in a while, and that topic is, of course, nutrition and eating for the job that we're out there so that we can go out and serve. And I like how we connected is one of my favorite stories of how I've connected with a guest that has then appeared on the show. And I want to share that with people so that they have a context to all this. You know, I get ideas for guests from books I've read, or listeners will email in with a recommendation or shoot me a DM. I have my list of, high-profile people I'm going after. So I have these ways of getting guests. And this one, yours is really unique because I was walking down the hallway at my station, and I saw one of my fellow sergeants, a guy I've worked very closely with especially over the last like 18 months. And I just noticed that I hadn't seen him in a couple weeks, and I just noticed that he was dropping weight like crazy. And this dude was not big, like obese big. He's big. He's 6+. I think he's 6'7". He's always been in good shape. He's an Ironman triathlete. He was a rescue swimmer in the Coast Guard before he came into law enforcement. So the dude's just a general badass, right? But as we all do with kids and night shift and the rotating shifts and the stress of the job, he had let his nutrition get away from himself a little bit. Not even to the point where I recognized it, but he did. And I only recognized it once I saw him and saw how much weight he had in fact lost. And I asked him what he was doing. And he turned me on to you, and he said, I did what I need to do, and I got a coach. Check this guy out. Check out First in Nutrition. This guy's name is John. They're amazing. And he just kind of showed me, he walked me through his MyFitnessPal, and watching that graph of his starting weight to the weight he was at now just take a nosedive. And it got me really intrigued. So I dug into your story and the fact that you guys came out of first responder professions and you really cater to that group, and shot off an email to you and asked you to come on the show. So welcome.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. And like you said, it's kind of an interesting, collection of events that brought it all together. We worked with somebody that you worked with, and you saw his progress. And again, like you said, it wasn't a guy that maybe you noticed how far away he had let himself go until you saw the changes he made afterwards. And I think that's what's really important. And it's really important for us is showing how it's not just people on the internet that can make this happen, but it's people in our stations. It's people in our lives. It's people walking the same walk we're doing that make it possible. And I think it just really helps drive home that this is something anyone can do when you do get that personal connection, and you see somebody that, you are on the street with, make those changes. And I mean, that's my favorite story, possible, when someone's success brings someone else to find what we do. I think it's really an awesome thing.
100%. Yeah. Cause it's easy to go on the web and see photos of before and after, and you wonder, your mind goes with, well, I mean, it could be the lighting, or maybe that was 2 years, not 6 months of work. There's all these things, but when you see it in person and you can ask a friend who gets excited about it, then it's really great. So I want to start. The name of your company is First In Nutrition, and there's a reason it's called First In, is because you and your wife, who both started the company together, were first responders originally. Tell us the story of how you got into service originally, and then how you transitioned out to focus on nutrition.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I got in the fire service kind of by a backwards kind of sort of connection. When I graduated high school, it was with a 5-colored Mohawk, and I was touring the country playing in rock and roll bands. So
nice.
Probably the least first responder thing you could think of at first on paper. I mean, I had dreadlocks for 10 years. I only cut them when I went to EMT school. But the thing was, I got home, got done touring in a band a little bit late in life, kind of hang on to those glory days a little bit longer than I should have. But, I got done and didn't know what I was going to do. And the only thing that was another constant in my life other than music was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And, I started training Jiu-Jitsu with this big old guy named Lester Packard. He's my best friend in the world. He's actually a member on First In. He's on our website, was in Men's Health for his transformation. But flashback, many moons ago, I met him doing BJJ, and he was a firefighter. And hanging out with him for a couple years, listened to how he went to work, went to help people, got to go hang out with his buddies, tell some bad jokes, eat some good food. It sounded a lot like a punk rock profession to me. Like, wait a minute, you mean I get to go hang out with my buddies for 24 hours, help some people, do some good things, eat some meals, tell some jokes? Man, it sounds like being on tour. So seeing him do it for a couple years, him kind of bringing me under his wing, it made me want to look into it more myself. So, I just made the decision finally, with his blessing, to kind of pursue it, to get the EMT, to go to fire, to get my medic and do all these things. And, flash forward 2 years later, I get hired with my dream department, the department that he was on, and get pulled off the street from suppression to go into paramedic orientation. And lo and behold, here comes this vision of beauty walking in with a gallon of water that matched mine. So she sits down at her front desk and puts her gallon of water down, and I look down at my gallon of water and I go, there must be something to this. This woman's a meathead too. Maybe we should talk. And that was literally it for how I met my wife. We met on the job in paramedic orientation, something you're not supposed to do. Basically moved in together after our first date and have been inseparable ever since. So that was kind of an interesting story. Between the gallon of water and a love for pretzel M&Ms, we basically kind of fell right together.
So how long were you in the fire service total?
So I was in for 7 years. My wife actually was in a little bit longer than me. She had time and rank on me. She was a promoted rescue officer, so that always made things interesting. Lower badge number and promotion, so we could tell who the boss really is. But it wasn't until sidetracked here for a second, but circling back, when my wife and I first met, she was in really good shape. She was lifting. I was lifting like crazy. But kind of some stuff you alluded to, man, that shift work, that lifestyle change, some of those circadian rhythms get interrupted, running those responses after midnight every night. Our first 5 years that we were on the job together weren't really too kind to me. And that's kind of where, you asked how we made this transition. It was basically out of necessity. I ended up putting on close to 50 pounds in 5 years. And it wasn't all the good stuff. And with that weight gain, came all the stuff, we deal with on a daily basis. I was pre-hypertensive. Blood work was completely wonky. I had sleep apnea, hormonal profile completely off. And, I still kept saying, not going to happen to me, not going to happen to me. But no matter what I could tell myself when I looked in the mirror, no matter what I could tell myself when we did our life scan, it was happening to me. And I kind of found myself moving towards becoming one of those statistics.
You know, I want to go backwards because you said something I didn't know about you, about your time in a punk rock band. And I would be remiss to not point out, well, two questions, or a question and a statement. But one is that listeners of the show know that I used to work in the music industry. And so the transition from punk rock band to service is up there, mine as well. I was on the business side. I was an A&R guy, and I was in marketing and stuff like that, right? But I came out of Los Angeles and transitioned into service as well too. So that's kind of funny that our worlds are connected. And then of course someone's going to point out, if I don't ask the question, the bands you were touring with, anybody we would know?
Man, so the answer is no. I was good enough of a singer, good enough of a punk rock artist that could become a fireman. So
I was a good enough A&R guy to become a police officer.
Yeah. So while I had some friends in bands, I did some video work for some bands. I've opened for some bands. Claim to fame, main stage, Dallas Warped Tour in front of 10,000 people.
All right.
The next day, donut shop in Fort Worth for 8 people.
Right.
No, man, no one's ever heard of me. No one outside of a very small niche. I mean, I was in some bands that did pretty okay, but okay means you had enough money to eat ramen on someone's couch.
Right. I mean, so I grew up listening to punk, and I always tried to sign punk bands when I could. But one thing I know for sure is that the punk rock lifestyle, the punk rock bands that I used to work with, I used to be on tour with Warped Tour, and I had bands on Warped Tour, and similar kind of shows. And nutrition, I guarantee, nutrition and working out, like exercise, those are not like culturally pervasive things in punk rock. Were you the one guy who was out there doing the burpees at the tour bus or at the van? Like,
it's interesting because yes. It's funny. Somebody just posted the other day on my post. I mean, literally, like, not making this up. Like less than 3 or 4 days ago, I had a deadlift video on my Facebook, and it was a guy that I used to tour with. He was in a band called My Hotel Year, and when I was in a band called As You Wish, we used to tour together. And he's like, "Man, I should have known that you were going to take this working out thing seriously when you'd be doing push-ups while the rest of us were doing whatever." Coming up in the punk rock scene when I did. Even as a 165, 170 pound kid that played with his shirt off, I got always called the jock back in the day. So even as a wee little lad, I was the guy that did work out. But one of my Warped Tour memories was actually getting some sets of bench press in with Davey Havoc from AFI. So that was kind of a cool like, hey, you work out, I work out. Let's get some lifts in. So yeah, it was kind of unique.
It's funny that we won't spend the whole time on this, I promise, but it's just fun because the first band I remember having any emphasis or focus on fitness that I worked with was 311. And I worked with them pretty closely during their third album, the album that blew up. And I remember once they got some good money behind them and they had some tour support and they got the buses instead of the vans, the first thing they did was rented a semi and made it into a gym.
Oh, and, wow.
And so they had this moving gym with them the whole time. And it's the only band I've ever seen that had that level of commitment to it. So, but I talk about all that just because this isn't something that like some people go into, like, the academy shapes them or changes them, and they have a commitment to fitness as a result of the academy. That wasn't you. You had this prior, and something you built up with. Did this come from your parents and your upbringing, or did you just realize that you feel better when you're eating and working out a certain way?
So, I think it's interesting. I think about this probably more than most people do. But when we think about media, entertainment, who our sources of inspiration are. I mean, dude, I grew up in the heyday. You got Arnold, you got Van Damme, you got Dolph Lundgren, you got these guys that are larger than life, and that's who you want to be. I mean, I grew up in the golden area of WWE. Ultimate Warrior was my jam when I was a kid. So wanting to be somebody who worked out and looked that way was just kind of something that came with it. Unfortunately, it didn't happen until I was an old married dude that I actually looked like I worked out, but that's okay. At least I'm here now. But I remember my dad buying me my first set of weights when I was 12, the old plastic, put the dumbbells on the
water in.
handles. Yeah, yeah. And I remember him doing curls, and my father's not a big man. He's about 5'7", was about 127 pounds his whole life. But I remember him flexing one time and just seeing this rock, a working man's muscle, and just going, that's a hero right there, wanting to do that. And so, my parents obviously were very supportive of me, letting me have blue hair in high school and supporting a punk rock, lifestyle. But they also would take me to the local meathead gym and let me work out for an hour and bring me home. So part of my life, it's kind of always been there. Whatever degree of success I was able to achieve or whatever is questionable, but that desire was kind of always there. And I think, man, it's like I said, you grow up in the 80s, who doesn't want to be Arnold,
So, so you spend your time in the service, in fire service, and you start feeling these effects at the 50 pounds. This might sound weird, but I'm glad to hear that. you know what I mean, though, because like people can't see you, but you're in Florida, like you're in Southern Florida. It's hot down there. I get it. And you weren't expecting this, and I'm going to totally throw you under the bus with this. But you're not wearing a shirt, right? And I wouldn't either if I was that ripped. But I'm just teasing you to the point that it's nice to know that you had your own struggle, because I think one thing that those of us, and I count myself in this group very much so, that one of the things that prevents us from asking for help or going with a coaching program or going with a nutrition program is seeing the person who leads it and feeling like that's unattainable and that we can't live up to that same set of expectations and that same behavior. So knowing that you've packed on 50 pounds and we're all the things that we don't want to be, I think that helps. At least it helps me as I'm talking to you right now to know here's a guy who can understand what that journey's like. Because if I'm looking at you right now, as I would, and you tell me fitness has been part of your life since the beginning, I would say you don't have any idea what I'm dealing with, right? Do you get that a lot?
That's extremely common. And the thing is, because let's face it, I'm fake news on the internet. I'm a model. I've been this way my whole life. I'm an off-season bodybuilder, whatever it is. And, I think that's why we're extremely transparent with everything we do. You go to our website, you go to the Who We Are section, and there I am in all my glory. And it's not very glorious. But at the time that photo was taken, I was dieting. I thought I was doing everything right. I had a vein in my arm, and man, I thought I was doing it right. All 240 pounds, 50 pounds heavier than I am now. I thought I was doing it. I was lifting heavy. I was doing the thing. And, the thing is we all, in first in have been there. We've all overcame these things. Every one of our coaches, we can show you our before photos. We can show you the path we walked. We can show you, where we've been at and why, and how the job has changed us and over the time and how we've been able to change ourselves because of it. And I think you're so right when it comes to wanting to know that the people that are responsible for help guiding you on your journey have been able to walk that walk before. That we're not all just born great eaters, or we haven't been lean our entire life, but we've had our own struggles to overcome. And, not that we all necessarily want to get to where I was, where health was a possible concern, but I think it is good to know that, man, we're all keeping it real. We're all on the same walk that every other member of the First In family is in. We're doing the same thing every day. And I think that's the big key of it is like, we can speak with somewhat of a degree of authority, not just because we've gained weight and lost weight, but because we've done it under similar adverse circumstances. I'm from the fire side, you're from the law enforcement side, but we both know how the impact of those shift work, the calls we run every day, the things we see, the stressors from the public, the stressors from admin, all these things we have to deal with. And now sometimes the easiest thing to do is just drown our sorrows in something else that may not help us or benefit us. Man, we've been there, and I think you're right. I wish I wouldn't have, had to take that wake up call, but I'm actually kind of glad I did too, because it kind of helps me, be able to relate in a way that I think helps us talk to people more.
You touched on it just now about some of the things that we deal with, the rotating shifts and the calls we go and the stress from admin and from the public and all those things. And you do a lot of work with first responders, so you have a good swath of experience here. I'm curious what you see are the common problems that you see coming from the first responder community And is there anything unique to us?
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons, you know, and it took some time to get from us making our transformation, my wife and myself, to getting to first in. But that's always been my rationale and reason for wanting to help. You know, when I made my transformation and I spent my 6 months, my year, you know, losing weight, solidifying it, improving, I sat at the big house. You know, I was at Station 11 in Hillsborough County, where we had an engine, a truck, a staffed heavy rescue, and a rescue car. And so I'd sit and look at those 11 dudes for the last year that it took me to transform. As I got better, watching them get worse, that's what made me go, you know what? This is what I want to do. This is who I want to help, and this is where I want to be at, because it's the brothers, it's the sisters that you know need the help the most, I think, and we're the ones that I think sometimes the most reluctant to reach out and get it, for some of the reasons you spoke up, for some of the reasons of ego, bravado. For my particular reason, it's not happening to me. It won't get me. That's somebody else. So I think there's reasons. Those are very common themes with first responders. Getting this population to accept help is tough because we're all self-reliant. We've all got some degree of alpha. We've all got some degree of, you know, I can take care of my own. I take care of everybody else all day. Of course, I can take care of myself. So that's a common theme as well. But, you know, you talk about cyclic shift work. You talk about raise your hand if you're trying to work overtime. You know, you talk about all these other things, stacking these hours in, you know, you talk about all this stress that impacts the body. It impacts hormonal response. You know, it impacts cortisol release. But the most thing it usually impacts is sleep. And it also impacts how much food you put in your mouth. And so these are some of the common themes. And, you know, yeah, a 24-48 firefighter might be different than a 412, you know, a law enforcement guy, and it might be different than somebody in the Army working 24-hour shifts. But at the same time, when you look back a little bit of a macro scale and you see what the impact is, that is week after week after week, that stacked up accumulated stress, it really can start to have some impacts that are a lot different. And, you know, I'm not here to say that, you know, first responders are the only people that need help or anything like that. But, you know, I got to be honest, when we're dealing with some of the stuff we deal with when it comes to working with, you know, a law enforcement officer, dealing with, you know, the stress from working in a high crime rate district and had a line of duty death and did all this, versus the stress of somebody trying to figure out how to make Cheesecake Factory fit, you know, it's a little bit different. Like, you know, I think those stressors are a little bit different and they can be mitigated a little bit differently. So, you know, I think just having a background to be able to go, yeah, man, that sucks. I understand. We probably can't do everything perfect. If I tell you get more sleep, do more exercise, that's not going to be very helpful. What can we do? Mm-hmm. And I think having a little bit of an understanding of that, knowing going into it that nothing's going to be perfect, but how can we make progress, I think is what kind of differentiates our approach in that capacity.
So what's the first, you know, when someone comes to you and they're, you know, they're overweight and all those things that come with it, and, you know, they're working those shifts, where does somebody begin, or where do you direct them to begin? What's the first thing you give them to make that exponential change?
So we're really big fans of some of those cliches, man. Slow and steady wins the race. You know, we got a bunch of things we say a lot of times, but our biggest thing is, you know, losing weight's not an issue. Anybody can lose weight. Raise your hand if you've done it before. But sustaining that change, making it be something that's lasting, you know, that's different. And to me, I think that requires a little bit of a different approach. So the first thing we try to do when we work with somebody is we want to meet you right where you're at. I want to get to know you. And what I mean by that is, what's life look like during a normal week? What do the busy days look like versus the not so busy days? The high call volume days versus the days where you're stealing money? What do the on days on look like, the off days? And what I mean by that is not just, you know, what does your food intake look like, but what's your stress level overall look like? What's your body weight look like? How does it respond to those days? Because what you're doing right now, what every one of us are doing right now, is keeping us where we're at. And if we want that to change, we just have to change some things. But flipping everything upside down overnight, restricting everything, trying to become a different person, that creates way too much resistance. So when we find out where someone currently is, we can find out what they're doing right, what they might need to work on improving, and we can meet them there and make tiny incremental changes to kind of build a solid foundation. And once that foundation's built, we can get a little crazier with it. We can get a little more aggressive if we need to. Maybe we don't. Maybe we just need some consistency. We don't know. Every single person is different. And I know, the concept of us all being unique snowflakes gets blown out of proportion sometimes. But man, every scenario, every person is different. And if somebody can just say they can look at you or read your email or read a message online and tell you they've got a perfect plan for you, I wouldn't believe them. I got to ask a lot more questions. I got to collect a lot more information before I can give anybody anything actionable. And I think that's where what we want to do first is we want to meet you where you're at and get to know you more so we can try to give you directions. One thing I like to say is a GPS, it only works if you got a good starting point. If you try to say, hey, give me directions and you can't have an accurate starting point, it's going to be very hard to know if it's left or right.
It's there's 2 points to that I thought that are interesting that I talk about a lot on the show. One, from a leadership perspective of meeting the people you work with and work for you, meeting them where they're at, not where you want them to be. I think that's a tenet of any good leader. But also, what I call what's your 20? And that self-awareness to know where you're at, because you can't set your goal of where you want to go without having a real understanding of where you are. So when you see first responders, what of the three things, what would you prioritize if someone can only fix two of three things? One is sleep, one is nutrition, and one is working out. What are the two that you tell them they got to handle?
So it's very difficult. If I lived in a perfect world, it would be sleep. That would be number one. But that is the one I think most first responders have the absolute least control over. Mm-hmm. So that's why I focus on food as number one. Okay. And then we tend to focus on training. I'm a huge fan of, I wish I had a source for this quote. I hate not being able to attribute sources, but the only time I've seen it, it was spray painted on a gym wall. And it basically said, do not train if you cannot gain. And that to me has always clicked, where if you can't recover from activity, don't do it. And unfortunately, in civil service, we all want to lift and we tend to compromise sleep for it. And I don't necessarily think that's the best plan. But I also know, like you said, know your 20. Tell somebody don't lift, take a nap, they're probably not going to listen. So that's why I truly feel sleep's probably the thing that's going to impact and benefit everybody the most. But I also know from working, it's going to be probably the least likely that we can change. So that's why if we can't make everything perfect, we control what we can. And that's why I think your nutrition really has to be on point. And then if you're going to work out, let's make sure we're not working against ourselves.
And so what, in the context of nutrition then and interacting with your nutrition, I don't want to jump ahead, but what kind of exercising program do you recommend for someone who's really trying to, start from a spot where they're maybe overweight and out of shape and want to get to a good spot? Where do they start, and does that change, like the kind of training? Does it go from heart rate zone emphasis and high cardio to more of a weightlifting thing, or CrossFit or HIIT or any of those things? How do you prescribe that?
So that's interesting. What I always fall back on is, what do you like to do? Because we can feed somebody for whatever activity level they have. And, we use what I like to call a lagging indicator, or the science of hindsight. We look and see what occurred and make an adjustment, not predict what's going to happen in response, hopefully, to training or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So what do you like to do? If you go to members of the First and Family, we've got people that are monster power lifters, competitive strongmen, people that do yoga and Zumba, people that run marathons, people that walk their dogs for activity, and they're all able to get better. And they're all able to improve their quality of life. So when it comes to activity, my first question is, are you moving? And if the answer is yes, if we're meeting the American Heart Association guidelines of 30 minutes, 3 days of 30-minute activity a week, fantastic. We're staving off heart disease. Now, how can we get a little bit better? If we're not doing that, well, let's work on that. One thing that's really interesting, depending on where you're at in your civil service career, if you're sitting at a desk, it's not as likely true. But if you're on the street, your daily activity, your step count. I mean, I remember by the time we finished checking out the truck in the morning, we did more activity than a lot of people do in a week. So that kind of helps with general fitness, general activity. If not, my favorite thing to suggest is walking. And I know that sounds really weird. Some guy, you're getting the benefit of seeing this shirtless guy talk about walking. Doesn't look like I walk too much, but I mean, walking just for catharsis, for moving, for blood flow, for mental health. Walk with your kids, walk with your dog, walk with your family, walk by yourself. Just walk and move. Anything outside of that, do the activity you enjoy and do the activity that your goals require. If you want to do powerlifting, you have to squat, dead, and bench. If you don't want to be a powerlifter, you don't have to do those things. If you want to do triathlons, you got to swim, bike, and run. If you don't want to do a triathlon, I'm not going to make you swim. But so as long as our goals don't require specific activity, we can be very general. But the more we like what we do, the more likely we're going to stick with it. Now, some people could go, well, I want to be challenged, so I want to do something I don't like. That's okay. You're still doing something you like. You're finding something that challenges you. You're finding something you'll stay motivated with. The last thing I want to tell somebody to do that hates the gym life is you have to go to the gym and lift weights. That's not for everybody. Sure. Everybody has to move. We have to make sure our task readiness is up. We have to make sure we're fit for duty. But outside of that, we can do that in ways that we enjoy it, and we're going to be more likely to stick with it.
You know, the walking thing, Mark Bell, famous power lifter and strongman out here on the West Coast, he's been on the show, and that was his comment too. His recommendation was, first thing is just go walk 20 minutes a day. I think he even said just 10 minutes, just go walk, and that'll get you on the path. One of the there's a lot of stuff around nutrition that, and I think it's almost intentionally confusing for people, right? I mean, now the biggest word right now is keto, right? But then you also have like the carnivore diet, and you have Atkins or paleo, and a lot of these are now almost buzzwords. You see them on the packaging of the food that is pitched to you as healthy anyways. And then there's macro counting, and there's caloric tracking. What do you recommend as a methodology, or is there even one for how we begin to define what kind of nutrition program we should be following? Like, what are the guidelines, or what are those bumpers we place up on the side of the bowling alley to bounce around in?
So the thing is, and this is a rabbit hole that can get very deep depending on who's reading what peer-reviewed paper and trying to engage in confirmation bias to prove their point. But at the end of the day, it kind of falls back again with activity. The best plan for you is the one you're going to stick with. When it comes to all the named diets, the keto, the carnivore, the paleo, even stuff like vegan, raw vegan, anything that's got a name, I don't care, South Beach, Whole30, whatever it is. The question I have to ask, and the way I phrase it to everybody is this: who do you know that's been doing it for 3 years successfully? Yeah. If you can't tell me somebody that's been doing it for 3 years successfully, are you telling me you're the one person that will be able to do it for 3 years successfully? And that's the question I want everybody to ask, because the thing when it comes to achieving a goal, whatever measures you take to reach that goal, you have to kind of understand have to be maintained in order to keep it. So if you start a diet, you do the 21-day fix or the Whole30 or whatever it is, and at the onset of that diet, you can't wait till the end to go celebrate the end of that diet, it is a terrible plan. What I tell people is I don't care what you can do for 2 weeks. Anyone can suffer for 2 weeks. Tell me what you think you can stick with for the next 2 years, and I'll show you a plan that might bring you lasting change. Because if you can't sustain it, don't bother starting it. And I think that's a personal thing. Are there people that can benefit from some of these extreme diets? In the case of like medical nutritional therapy for medically induced ketogenesis, yeah, man, you got some seizures, you got some epilepsy, that probably has some really positive signs that could change for you. But you're trying to lose some weight. Tell me, do you think you're going to be able to give up cake your whole life? If the answer is no, well, maybe we don't want to take that extreme of an approach. And that's what I try to tell everybody is like, man, if you don't see yourself sustaining it, don't bother starting it, because that yo-yo is real. That kickback's real, to where like, oh man, I just finished 21-day fix. Let's go to Applebee's, get some appetizers. And you wondered why you put 11 pounds on and you only lost 8. Those are the things I try to, just ask around, man, who's been doing diet X for the last 2-3 years? Do you think you're the one? And if you do, man, high five. I'm all for anybody. I'm a big fan of you do you. If it's working for you, if you're happy with the outcome, if you're loving life, then it must be a great plan. As far as anything else goes, for me, it comes down to the big basics, man. Calories in, calories out. As easy as that sounds, hey, if we just eat less and move more, everything will be great. The problem is with those kind of cliched levels of advice, it's the same thing as, well, what's the secret to being wealthy? Well, save your money and invest wisely. Who's that ever helped? We kind of need something a little bit more actionable. And that's where I think that guidance and that accurate inventory comes into play. At the end of the day, weight loss, pounds on the scale, is going to be influenced primarily by calories in, calories out. The type of weight you lose, whether you're losing fat, whether you're losing water, whether you're losing muscle, is going to be influenced heavily by that next step, like you alluded to, macronutrients, your protein, your fat, your carbs. You can keep going down that level. You can keep talking about micronutrients and vitamins. If your hair and skin and nails are falling out and your gums are bleeding, well, maybe we need a multivitamin. We need to worry about scurvy. But outside of that, we can accomplish so much by not choosing to major in the minors, but focusing on the things that are the big rocks we can move first, our calories, our macronutrients. Most people that get those on wrap and focus on those tend to be happy with everything else that comes with it. And any other diet that works is probably manipulating those, whether it's by removing food groups that don't have certain macronutrients, or whether it's by making it to where you're so frustrated with can't eat this or can't eat that, you just don't eat anything and you lose some calories. Whatever it is, they tend to manipulate those big rocks. How they do, it's up to them. I just choose to peel back that curtain and put some personal accountability in someone's lap and let them make their own choices.
So to that personal accountability, what you're obviously a nutrition coach. That's why you're here. But for someone who's just starting this program by themselves, they may not have the resources or the willingness to put themselves out there enough to hire a coach. How can they become accountable to themselves? Maybe being accountable to yourself might be the hardest person to ever be accountable to, right? But how does someone do that?
Yeah, I'll tell you, being accountable to yourself is very difficult. I've been measuring and managing my food intake and doing this professionally for close to the last 5 years. And I'm not my own coach. I don't have one coach. I have 3 people that I report to and let me know when I'm messing up. And the problem is being objective with something we're as personally attached to as ourselves is very hard, unless you're a sociopath. Which in that case, I guess that's one positive win. You can separate yourself completely from yourself. But we're just too damn good at rationalizing our decisions. I deserve this cupcake, or I'm going to punish myself for this, or I'm just going to work this off tomorrow. We're just too good at it. So my suggestion with somebody that wants to manage their own intake and make their own progress is become as objective as possible. Take as many measurements and metrics as you can. Weigh yourself, measure yourself, track your calories, and then you're going to have to make decisions based on that information. Sometimes less isn't more. Sometimes more is less. These are the things that become difficult to do because, let's face it, man, we all want to write our own narrative. When I feel I'm getting too fluffy, well, then I want to cut. When I feel like, I'm getting too emaciated looking, well, of course I want to bulk, and I can change in the middle of a day. If I change my calories that much and I move the goals that much and I move the benchmark that much, I'm never going to make any progress. I'm probably going to push myself backwards. Yeah. So sometimes I think that's what's hard. I think the best advice is collect those objective metrics and then give yourself enough time to make sure something's working or not working. You can't constantly flip-flop. Just like if you want to get good at guitar, you can't move to ukulele and then pick up a paintbrush. You have to focus on that guitar. You have to give it enough time to focus. So if you're going to decide like, well, I'm going to try X calories or I'm going to try X lifting routine, do it for 6 months. Let's see what it's going to do. You need to give things time to work. And I think that's why, we talk about a slow and steady approach. It's because the body's not going to just change overnight. I made a post today that says you didn't get to your before photo overnight. Don't expect to get your after either. And that's one of those things we have to understand. If we're trying to undo decades of damage, we can't do it in a couple of days. Give me a couple months, give me 6 months, give me a year, we can get really close. And I think that's the thing, is you have to be willing to trust yourself long enough to let those things work. And I think that's what's really hard when you try to coach yourself.
Oh yeah, I can see that. I mean, I imagine that meal preparation is a big part of any successful plan. It's also something I think that a lot of us struggle with, especially when, if you're working a 412 and you come home and you scramble to make whatever dinner you can make, and then you crash out and put the kids to bed, and then you rack out yourself and you're up at 04 the next morning. And it's like, during the week, there's not a lot of time to meal prep something like that. What are some of the tips you give your first responder clients about planning those meals?
Man, take something hard and ask yourself, what would it look like if it were easy?
One of my favorite questions.
So, yeah, right. So I get up every morning. How can I make breakfast easy? Maybe it looks like bars, shakes. Maybe it looks like a scoop of protein in my coffee. Maybe it looks like something I can pack and go. Maybe it looks like a drive-through I can hit on the way. They're calories of drive-through meals. We can find things that fit the plan. Maybe it looks like I cook a bunch of egg beaters on the weekend, wrap them in tortillas, freeze them in wax paper, and I have breakfast burritos made for the week. Man, I don't know. It can look like anything you want it to look like, but what would it look like if it were easy? I tell a lot of people, especially that are on shift, fire's a little bit different. We would always go to the store and make stuff. So I would bring my own food sometimes, because God knows what those guys want to eat. But let's say we're on patrol. Let's say we're in a car by ourselves. So maybe we disaster proof it. What are the 3 or 4 of my favorite restaurants in my area that I'm responsible for? What are 3 or 4 meals that I can get there? We live in a time where we can go into a convenience store. Wawa's my favorite. I don't know if they've made them out west or not, but we can go get a Fairlife Core Power shake out of the fridge at a convenience store. We can get boiled eggs. We can get all these things if we wanted isolated macronutrient meals. I'm a huge fan of going to a wholesale club like Sam's Club or whatever and finding what pre-cooked protein sources they have. They've got pre-cooked chicken breast. They've got pre-cooked pulled pork that's super lean, that's delicious. How do we make it easy? And that's the thing, is once we start trying to find reasons we can do things and not excuses as to why we can't, we start seeing it's a heck of a lot easier when we start being proactive. And that's one thing that we have our community for is, you ask me my top 5 and maybe I run out there, but you ask 220 other people their top 5, and now you've got 1,000 things you can try. And I think that's the thing is ask yourself how you can make it easier and start finding reasons you can do it. And I mean, that's the thing, is like, I don't know what everybody likes to eat, but I know that you can find something. And, prepping, planning, it's that whole falls back to failing to plan is planning to fail. What's a plan we could set you up with? We can all talk about the reasons we can't do anything. Let's just start talking about what's one thing we can do. What do you like enough to eat for the next 2 or 3 days? Great. Set that in stone. Now we got 2 or 3 days to come up with the next 2 or 3 days. And we do that enough time, we've got this rotating menu of things we can do. And, chicken and rice is great if you like chicken and rice. But I'm not a fan of chicken and rice every day. I'm a fan of pulled pork and Alexia 98% fat-free fries. There's my chicken and rice. My go-to meals when I used to go to work, I had the same lunch and I had the same dinner. I had cold pasta salad with feta cheese, tomato, and black olives, and what I affectionately refer to as a meat cookie, a little 93.7 ground beef with some A1 for lunch. Made it, prepped in advance, easy to do. And then at night, I had a burrito bowl. Really easy to make a burrito bowl. Man, you can get fajita seasoned steak, fajita seasoned chicken pre-cooked, throw that on top of some rice or some lettuce, and now you can make a burrito bowl. Really easy stuff you can do. You just got to kind of put a little more thought into it than talking yourself out of it.
Putting into it and then out of it. Yeah, I like that. You know, nutrition is an investment. Getting a coach is an investment. But people are always looking for gadgets. I like gadgets. I'm always curious about gadgets. Is there a thing? Is there something like, what's the best investment someone can make in managing their nutrition for, say, under $50?
Man, under $50, this is going to be the game changer here. And it's the one that most people don't want to hear, but a food scale.
Oh, okay.
You got a food scale. I like these little travel ones you can break, so you can take it everywhere, so you really have no excuses. But that's how you accurately can track your intake. If you're not accurately tracking your intake, you're guessing. I don't like to guess with progress. So under $50, get a food scale. You can start seeing some of the reasons why you're where you're at or why you're not where you want to be. Go ahead and gram out a serving of peanut butter. Tell me how many times you think you've actually put a serving of peanut butter on a sandwich versus half a jar. I know if you asked me to get a serving of peanut butter some of my late nights after we slayed the dragon, knocked that pot on the stove down and thought we were some heroes, I'd come back and make me a bender and I'd put a shovel in that spoon and slap that thing on. That was not a serving. That was about 8 servings. So these are the things that accurate inventory. You got $50 to spend. You want to change your life? Get a food scale. Find out what you're actually taking in.
Oh, that's good advice. That's a good one. It's a good time, I think, right now to kind of point out to people or to share with people, too, that, how we met. I told you about that at the beginning, or I told everyone about that at the beginning. And then we've corresponded through email and such over the last couple of weeks, and just got so motivated by what you're doing and what you're putting out. And that I signed up. I signed up as a client. And because I'm at a spot where I'm like, man, it's not working for me the way this is not going as planned, right? I mean, I've been in an admin spot for about 18 months, which means a desk job, right? So all I do all day long is sit and stare at a computer. And so that means I'm pretty sedentary when I'm at work. I'm not moving around anymore. I'm not in and out of a patrol car. I'm not wearing a heavy 33 pounds of gear. I'm just in a shirt and tie and sitting all day long. And then through the holidays and through the stress of this admin job and all those reasons that people throw at as an excuse that they got to where they're at, man, I got every one of them. And I've used every one of them over the last 6, 7, 8 months, right? And it was in that conversation with my buddy where I realized I already knew how far gone I had gotten, right? But in that conversation with him where it seemed plausible and possible that I had a path out of this. And I always talk on the show, always talk about the importance of having coaches, right? And I'm a firm believer in the idea that you are the average of the 5 people around you. That's not my quote. That's a common, that's a very well-known quote. And it's been attributed to a bunch of different people, but whoever said it first is absolutely true, right? And so even one of my very first episodes of the show was about the importance of having coaches, different kinds of coaches in your life, whether it's physical or a mental or maybe a marriage coach or, a mentor at work or a mentor in your spirituality or practice, whatever it is. We need to look to people who can help us, walk the path that we want to walk. Because if we take this upon ourselves and we do, if we only follow our own patterns, we end up, right where I am right now, right? So I realized, too, that I was going to be a hypocrite in this area if I didn't take it upon myself to look for and hire a coach. And I want to be clear to people, too, that, this isn't a sponsorship. It's not gratis. I paid out of pocket for the coaching, right? And I got my skin in the game here. And so I just wanted to share that with people because, so that we can kind of track and hold myself accountable to this, but also share the importance. Here I am talking about why you should have a nutrition and a coach, but if I don't share that I also have my own coach, which is you now, then I'm not being as open and honest and helpful as I can be. So we're in a spot right now in the coaching where I had just started. We're in this phase where you have me measuring everything I eat, which is mind-numbing, but I hope it gets easier. And tracking some basic things and getting a snapshot of where I'm at, which is probably the intention you have behind it, is absolutely terrifying. To realize, like you said, those 8 servings of peanut butter, or how just things add up at the end of the day, and over the course of a couple days, and then the course of a week or so. But I'm excited to use your knowledge and skill. I wasn't joking earlier when I said it's nice to know you had this challenge yourself, because as a client now, it's instantly more relatable. And so I'm excited for this journey. I'm also, I don't know how often you get this, but when you have a new client, when someone comes in and they're not reluctance or reticence, I guess, but just they're not confident in themselves that they're going to be able to do what needs to be done. And maybe that's why the exterior accountability is such a crucial part of having a coach. But, what do you say? What you tell it to me right now. Or what do you say to someone who's like, I don't know if I can do this?
So I think that's extremely common, because we're trying to do so many things, right? One, I'm asking you to eat like nobody's watching. Somebody's watching, you're watching, that's difficult. You're going, oh man, I'm seeing all this, I'm seeing whatever. But we're asking you to trust the process, because again, what's your 20? We got to meet you where you're at. But the thing is this, it's like fear of failure can do one of two things. If you push through it, then you get to see what success is like. But if you buy into it and you tell yourself you can't, you're right. So we need to shift that mindset. Like, it's okay to not know what you're doing, because these are new skills. Mm-hmm. That's why we take a very slow and steady approach to build that foundation and to build that confidence. We're not going to change things drastically overnight, because if we did, we might put you in a position that confirms that. So this is too hard, I can't do this, whatever. But like I said, we got to ask, what would it look like if it were easy? And that's what our entire process that you're about to see is. We're gonna move the big rocks first. We're gonna focus on how do we develop the skill that is going to benefit you the most. And we do that for that very reason, because we understand that everybody's coming to us from a different spot, different history with tracking, different history with their relationship with food, different outlook on food, completely different lifestyles. So again, that whole meet you where you're at thing, if you knew everything coming in, we'd never met. I wouldn't be on the show right now. So it's a good thing to understand you're going into something that you're not 100%, prepared for, because we're never 100% prepared for anything. It's like my first shift acting lieutenant, when I told a good buddy of mine, a mentor in the fire service, like, I don't think I'm ready. He goes, good. If you thought you were ready, you'd be wrong. He's like, the fact that you're aware enough of your limitations to not feel ready means you're going to pay more attention. So, when somebody comes in and they're nervous, cool, man, me too. I didn't know what I was doing when I started. We could start a club. And that's what we've done. We've got all this support together. My big advice, let's pretend no one else is listening to us. My biggest advice to you is get active. Get active in that community. Get active with me. Get active with the people that have walked that walk and been there before. Man, success leaves clues. So we're all willing. I don't mean just me and Ann, my wife, and Steve and Adam. I mean every single person in that group. Man, my buddy PJ Lester that I told you about, he'll get on the phone with you and talk you. What do you like to eat? He'll talk your ear off, man. He loves this so much. It's changed his life so much. You are not alone, and that's what I love about First In. When my wife and I left the fire service, we left behind a brotherhood and a sisterhood. We didn't have that kind of bond anymore. I mean, yeah, we can call our brothers up, whatever. I actually just recently decided, hey, I got plenty of time. Why don't I reserve and volunteer with the career department out here? So now I'm volunteering to help the guys on the street out a little bit. But, we wanted that family in First In for that reason. We wanted that bond, that brotherhood, that sisterhood. And that's what it is. So, man, you're nervous, cool. There's probably 5 other people that are just as nervous, that are starting out. Get in there, ask for that help. We don't have to go it alone. And we need to understand that it's cool, man. Any journey we start, we're going to be a novice. We got that white belt mentality. Let's engage with that. Let's use that to our advantage. Don't look at it as a weakness. I think it's one of your biggest strengths is knowing you don't know it all. Come in thinking you know it all, you might miss something. You may never find out about that lean pulled pork that's pre-cooked that you can just slap on a tortilla and be done with, man. Have some instant tacos. That's the game changer.
I like all that. That's all good advice. So I thought it'd be fun to have this episode at the start of this process for me, so that we can not only just announce this to the world, but no, to actually compare and contrast, and to have you back on at some point in the future to look at and really help me evaluate and then help others with where their struggles are at. Because I joked at the beginning of this episode about this being my least favorite topic, and it's kind of true. But I also know that this is a topic where when I do an episode like this, I get the biggest response from people who are like, "That's me too. Thank you for the information. I've been wondering. I don't know. I didn't know where to start." So I know that this will get a good response, and I think it'll be good to have you back on to do a compare and contrast, and we can talk about where I tripped up, because I fully expect I will. Right. And I have to give myself that grace to understand I'm not going to be perfect, but we can maybe have you back on to share, and we can help people get even better. Jonathan, before we go, where can people find out about you, find out about First in Nutrition, and tell them where to go for all that?
Absolutely. Firstinnutrition.com. It sounds kind of complicated. It's not that we think we're the first in nutrition. It's that first in, like everybody is first in, first do. So firstinnutrition.com. We're active on social media. You can follow me on the Facebooks, Jonathan Montgomery. Whatever we can do to help, we're here to help, man. Our website, it's kind of vague by design because, like we talked about, every person's different, every plan's different. But we have a really awesome section we just rolled out there called Family, where members of our family, we've done some interviews with them. It's basically having a conversation with someone you never met, but people from all walks of life, from law enforcement, from first responders, from military spouses, firefighters, to a designer and product developer for Tommy Hilfiger's on there. So we've got all kinds of people on there that'll tell you in their own words, because like we said, I'm fake news. Nobody thinks I've ever struggled, but here are people that are walking the walk with you, that are in the group today, in the family, to kind of help share their experience. And I think they say it a whole lot better than I do.
We'll put links to that, all the stuff you just mentioned, in the show notes. So if someone's not able to right now, they can go to thesquadroom.net and look for your episode, and they can follow the links there. And they're also in the show notes, of course, too. If you're listening on Apple or whatnot, just scroll through the bottom. You'll find the show notes and the links over to Jonathan and Ann's company there, First in Nutrition. Jonathan, thanks for being with me today. Thanks for the time and the enthusiasm. I look forward to this process and, seeing where it goes.
Man, thanks so much for having us. I'm so glad you're with us in the family, man. Thanks for sharing this journey with us. It's going to be good, man. We're gonna have fun with it.
All right. Good to hear. All right. Thanks for listening to this episode with Jonathan Montgomery. Now, you wonder how this relates to badges. I always try to bring this back to badges in some way: our beliefs, our actions, discipline, goals, emotions, and service. And so much around diet, nutrition, and food in general hinges on our beliefs. Our beliefs about what we're capable of, what we value in our relationship with food. And don't kid yourself, you have a relationship with food one way or another, whether it's positive and good in a way that is almost non-existent or unrecognizable, to the point where you recognize, maybe like me, you're a stress eater, or you overindulge as a filling a need, or maybe you eat to feel satisfied. There's a million different things that go into our relationship with food, but it all begins with our beliefs. And for me, what I struggle with is the actions that revolve around our beliefs, and how I can align my actions to my beliefs, but also change the beliefs I have and then change the actions. And with nutrition, that can be a real challenge. And it certainly takes an inordinate amount of discipline around food. If you're trying to lose a lot of weight and you've spent years getting into bad shape, it takes time to get back into good shape. Allow yourself the grace to understand that it took a long time to get to where you are, and it's not going to be overnight to get out of it. You got to move the dirt, as John Wellborn, a former guest, does say. Every day is about moving the dirt. And some days you move a little, and some days you move a lot. And it might look pointless moving your pile of dirt from one place to another, but the whole point is to just move the dirt. Now, goals, I talk a lot about process goals versus end goals. End goals being the SMART goals that a lot of people advocate about, being measurable and specific and having a deadline. And I generally don't like those kinds of goals. I think we should focus more on process goals. What's the next right thing to do? What is the thing that I can do consistently that's going to get me to where I am? And so a process goal might be exercising 3 times a week versus an end goal of losing 30 pounds in 3 months. Well, if I exercise 3 times a week, but I don't lose the 30 pounds in 3 months, do I consider myself a failure, or is that a success? And that's why I don't like the SMART goals so much as I like process goals. Because if I work out 3 times a week and I eat well and I hit my calorie and macro count more often than not, I will lose weight. And then every day is going to be a success in that sense, versus getting to that 3-month mark and feeling like a complete failure because I lost 21 pounds and not 30. Hope you're following me there. Emotions in badges. Emotions and food are so intertwined. So much of what we do around food involves emotion. Filling a need, feeling a sense of fullness, feeling a sense of accomplishment even. So much of what we have around nutrition engages our emotions for many of us. And service, well, it may not seem like the service has much connection to this here, but really, if you're out of shape and you're unwilling to do something about it, you really can't be of service to other people. You're never going to be of service to yourself, and you're never going to be able to serve your highest purpose, your highest abilities, your highest potential if you are out of shape. It is just simple. It's just like that. If you want to know how you can support the show, there's a few ways to do that. Most importantly, if you like what you heard today, if you got something out of this conversation, please consider leaving a review on the podcast player of your choice. Please also leave a comment, an honest comment with your review. It helps us understand the show and also helps us grow and spread this message to more people. Of course, share this episode with a loved one or somebody you know needs to hear it. You can share this episode right from our webpage at thesquadroom.net and from most of your podcast players. And just share this information with people. Use it in your briefings. I get lots of great emails from sergeants and lieutenants who use the topics in these episodes as briefing topics for their guys and girls and women, And I think that's fantastic. Of course, join our Facebook group. Just search the Squad Room group and you'll find us. Follow me on Instagram at the Squad Room. And a special thanks to our sponsors for today's episode, Hard to Kill Fitness. They're amazing human beings over there doing a lot of great stuff during this pandemic, where you have the ability to do a lot of in-home workouts and keep in shape or get in shape. And you have some fantastic leaders who have designed these programs for you, and they're doing a great job. So please check them out, hardtokillfitness.co, or on Instagram as well. And of course, if you want to learn a lot about them, check out my episode with Matt, the operational athlete, a couple episodes ago. He was an awesome dude. And of course, if you're shopping, go to thesquadroom.net/support, and you can get deals on Ranger Up, Hardhead Veterans. Hardhead Veterans will give you $20 off your first helmet when you use the coupon code SQUADROOM off of a ballistic helmet from their inventory. It's a fantastic company. It's what I carry in my go bag, and I love their products. All right, until next time, take care of each other and stay safe.